everyone, thank you for tuning into Team Forbidden's YouTube page again. It is Andrew the Collect here, back with the third and final part of our trilogy of the top 5 decks for the format. And this one is actually going to be my favorite because I like budget decks, especially when they have a shot at competing with the top meta decks. So just to clarify, because I had a lot of people comment and question from the last video, what is considered to be budget? For me, budget is when you can build a deck, an extra deck, and a side deck for between $100 to $150, depending on what you go with. So within that range, that's really what I consider budget, is capped at $150 and below. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So for number 5, I'm going to go with Sword Soul. In my last video for the top 5 rogue decks, I put this at number 4. This is at the bottom because while the Sword Soul core itself, and as well as the Tenyi core itself, are really like dirt cheap, a lot of the stuff in the extra deck aren't. Mainly with Baron. Baron right now at its cheapest is between $49 to $55. That's literally a third or half of your budget right there. But you can substitute Baron for an extra of the other level 10 Sword Soul monsters that you run, but your deck isn't going to be as successful as it would if you had Baron. Plus, the Apple Dragon Tuner monster that was just released, it may be cheap, one of the cheaper ultra rares, but it's still a $10 card, and you're going to need to run 2 of them, so that's another $20 right there. So you can play around with the build. It has a bunch of potential. The main deck itself and possibly the side deck are going to be dirt cheap, but the extra deck is where most of your money is going to go. Alright, so for number 4, I'm going to go with Mathmech. Mathmech, like I said in my top 5 meta decks, this was number 5 on my top 5 meta decks. It has really good potential, at least to compete with the top contenders. And while most of the deck is cheap, the things that are going to set you back are in the extra deck, plus Superfactorial, and I believe Sigma. Those are roughly $10 to $15 a piece, and you're going to need to run 2 Factorial and 3 Sigma. So that's where most of your budget's going to go. The new Firewall Dragon that was released, which is the cover card, is around $5. That's pretty much what will help make this budget, is that a lot of the main stuff that you need are cheaper, except for those 2 cards. Those ones, the Factorial and the Sigma, are the ones that are going to get you, are going to break your wallet the most. But you could do different variants of the Cyber builds. You can run them with the Code Talkers, and you can run the IB lock build. There's a bunch of different variants that you can run with this. But I'm having this lower, but it's slightly less expensive than Sword Soul, at least in my opinion, and it definitely has more of a meta contender. Now, number 3, this one is going to be a little odd. I'm going to go with the branded / Despia deck, more specifically with the Despia build. Because if you go pure Despia fusion build with a little bit of the Albaz and branded engine in it that you get from the structure decks, you're going to have a really good cheap deck. Because a lot of the fusions and a lot of the main cards that you need are going to be like cents. Pretty much the most expensive card is going to be a Luber, which even then is going to be like between a $5 to $10 card, depending on what rarity that you want to get. But yeah, it's really cheap, and it also has the potential, if you have more in your budget, you can get some of the more expensive stuff like the new Albion fusion monster, or even Guardian Chimera if you want. But yeah, like I said in my previous video, there's a wide variety of different variants that you can do with branded. But at its core, it actually is a really good budget deck. Now for number 2 is going to be Floowandereeze. Floowandereeze is dirt cheap. Morganite is a $2 card. I don't really know what else I can say. The most expensive card in this deck is going to be their quick play. Searcher. But even then, it's around $10. Other than that, everything is either $5 or under, because the whole deck got reprinted, basically. Ryza got reprinted. Mist Valley Apex Avion got reprinted. You basically don't need an extra deck. The only reason you want to run an extra deck is if you're running Extravagance or Pot of Prosperity, which Extravagance is since now because it's a common. And Pot of Prosperity, if you have more in your budget, which most likely you will, you can run out and get that, and it's a $20 to $30 card. So yeah, it's was my number one in the rogue category, and it's going to be number two in the budget because it has one of the highest chances of being a top meta contender. But my number one budget deck is probably going to be the same as I did last time. It's going to be Traptrix. You can pick up 3 structure decks, $30, if that. Build what you have from that, and that's all you need. You can build a side, you can build an extra, and you can build a main deck from those 3 structure decks, and you can compete with it. There have actually been numerous tops of people who did just that, and that's the reason it's number one for the budget, for the best budget decks. And probably it's going to be the best budget deck in the near future. The only thing that is Traptrix's weakness is that you need to go first, like 90% of the time. You can main deck evenly matched, Dark Ruler No More, Kaijus, even Lava Golems if you're able to, because they do have a double summon in terms of their field spell. There are ways to go second, but most of the time you have to go first. That's probably its only contender. And why it's not in the top 5 meta decks right now is because that it has to go first, and if you don't, you're going to have a real hard time. But other than that setback, this deck is really good and it's really cheap. So I highly recommend that you pick it up just to have it. If for some reason Traptrix get more support, or if the meta changes drastically because of the new ban list, you should have a core set of. You should have the core for this deck, at the very least. Go out to your card shop, order online, just get the structure decks, and you'll have everything that you need. I guarantee it. And that's going to do it for the top 5 budget decks for the new format. Stay tuned for our ban list reaction and discussion of the ban list that will be happening pretty soon. But until then, we'll have to wait until the list comes out, see how the format changes. Until then, we'll catch you guys later.